Well, if you look that, you'll see that rash like on my arm. I also have that on my back as well. And that is what you would call shingles. Now, what I want to tell you people, and the reason that I did this is because I've had a condition. In 1975, it was diagnosed as reactive arthritis. And for about 32 years after that, I would have occasional uveitis. Once in a while, I'd have a little tiny bit of a sore joint. Nothing you complain about. Well, I was basically asymptomatic for a long time. Then about 7 years, I started getting really tired, like super fatigued. I went through the whole gamut of sleep apnea, even though I wasn't overweight. I was a total workout nut. I thought I might have had dermatomyositis from, excessive working out, triggering an autoimmune disease. I went to allergists, internal medicine doctors. I treated in Chicago. I went to Northwestern Hospital. And during that time, I ended up having an arrhythmia, and that kind of jived with the health conditions that I was going to have. I treated for another year in Chicago, ended up going down to Cleveland Clinic, and I ended up getting a cardiac ablation, which was 100% successful. In addition to that, I went ahead and went through their week-long program where they basically send you through every kind of doctor, and they couldn't find anything that would have led them to believe that I had an autoimmune disease. I had that ablation and I never really ended up getting better. I felt super tired the whole time. So to fast forward, I continued to suffer. I sent several letters to Cleveland Clinic. They wanted me to come down there and do the whole program again, which I wasn't willing to do because they didn't find out anything the first time. And I was feeling just as crappy as I had been, even prior to the ablation and subsequent to the ablation. So I was basically out my own. I went down to Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. They thought I had fibromyalgia. I tried the medication. It didn't do anything. Then I went over to Wayne State. They didn't really know what I had and tried a couple medications. Didn't do anything. So I ended up going back to the University of Michigan back in December. I just felt like I was going to drop dead any day. I'm seeing a rheumatologist there named Dr. Khanna, Khanna. She seems like a nice lady. I think she has my best interests in mind. I ended up in January going on sulfasalazine. And for about maybe 3 or 4 days after I first got on it, I did not feel good. I felt bad all along, but nothing like this. I thought that I was going to drop dead. And I called them every week and told them that, hey, I really feel bad. What should I do? And they would explain to me that sulfasalazine, most people didn't like, to just stay on it. So after about probably 2 months with them wanting me to hang in there, I finally was able to call internal medicine down there and get an appointment the next day. I went down there and saw a doctor who was basically a waste of time. They always want to allude to whether you're depressed or not. The good news is while I was down there, I had an open order for a blood test. So I got a blood test down there while I was there, drove back home. I live about 170 miles away. And the next morning when I got up, I had 13 messages on my voicemail that I needed to get to an emergency room as soon as possible, that I was having liver failure. So I didn't want the $64,000 helicopter ride down to the University of Michigan, so I drove myself down there. Frankly, I wasn't feeling any worse then than I had been for the prior 6 years. I was hospitalized overnight. Of course, I quit the sulfasalazine in time. A couple of months, the liver enzymes went down. They're still high normal, blah, blah, blah. I tried every non-steroidal anti-inflammatory you can think of. It didn't do any good. And about 2 months ago, I went on prednisone, and that didn't do anything either. So at that time, the decision was to go on methotrexate or Humira. There was an insurance glitch. They wanted me to try methotrexate first. They ended up changing their mind, so I didn't have to take that. And I was prescribed Humira. So like I'm sure a lot of people do, I went on the internet and read the horror stories. And if you look at all reviews, whether it's restaurants or vacation spots, seems like most people seem to complain when they're unhappy, as opposed to when they're feeling good or had a good time. They just don't get around to putting that on there. It's mainly negative reviews. So now I was stuck with either taking Humira or not. It was shipped to me in the overnight container. And I was feeling better than normal, and I didn't want to ruin my summer. So I decided not to take it. So about 3 weeks ago, I just started really feeling bad again. And I called University of Michigan, and they thought, well, try this Humira, you have it already, blah, blah, blah. So today's date is August 18th. So it'll be 2 weeks this Wednesday I took my first injection. If you look on prior videos, you'll see where I took that first injection. I mean, I didn't know what it was like, because it turns out you can't hardly feel it at all. It's the smallest needle I've ever seen. And about 2 days afterwards, I just really started feeling like hell. Worse than normal. So Humira has a 800 number where they boast that you can contact a registered nurse basically whenever you want to. And if it's after hours, you can get a hold of one through a 24-hour line, blah, blah, blah. So about after the second day, my right arm started feeling funny. And then it started to hurt. And then it got where I couldn't even lift up a coffee cup. So I was drinking with my left hand. Then I felt like my back was sunburned. Well, I live alone, and it didn't feel like, God, what is that on my back? I just kind of went along with it and never went and looked in the mirror to see what it was. Well, after about the fourth date, I had all these giant red like blisters, and it hurt like hell. It felt like somebody squirted lighter fluid on me and lit it. And the first thing I did was, I called the University of Michigan. It was like, well, it takes a while to get in there. And then I called Humira and I said, hey, they answer the phone. It's Humira, how can we help you? You hear music playing in the background, just like the commercials, a bunny rabbit walking through the green grass, some 50-year-old with a fantastic body winking at you, curling her finger like, let's go out for a date. That kind of ambiance to the recording you get before the nurse actually comes on. So she comes on and she says, well, how can I help you? I said, yeah, I was prescribed this Humira, and I took this stuff about a week ago. And, God, I started she said, well, first of all, let me ask you a couple questions. My name, date of birth, because you're registered on that stuff. I wonder, thinking back, if that's for their best interest and not mine. Oh, yeah, what's your physical address? Oh, yeah, how can I help you? She said, let me ask you, why are you on Humira? So I said, well, I'm on Humira because I have a kind of undiagnosed autoimmune disease. She said, well, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis. I said, no, I don't. I was diagnosed with reactive arthritis, 35 years ago, and maybe that's it, maybe it's not. So, okay, well, what are the symptoms? And I told her. I'm thinking, here I'm talking to a registered nurse. I mean, there's something wrong here. I mean, this looks like somebody put battery acid on me. And the conversation just kind of went to more and more bullshit. Like I'm calling for a medical interest, and she's saying to me, how's the weather up there up north? Is it hot? And I'm thinking, what the hell are you talking about? I reiterated, I said, lady, it feels like my muscles are burning up on my right side. I got these like blisters. I said, I can't even pick up a cup of coffee with my right hand. And she says, oh yeah. She said, wow, that is kind of serious. You can't pick up a coffee with your right hand. I'm thinking to myself, can't pick up a coffee? Fuck, I can't even jack off. Are you kidding me? A coffee is nothing. This is important. The conversation gets worse. She talks about more bullshit. Nothing like, go to your local doctor. This is what I think it is. Try to go to an emergency room. It's just kind of a bullshit conversation. And this is Humira's 800 number. So I hang up. I wait a day. I ended up calling Humira again. And Get to another sweet sounding nurse. Sounds like June Lockhart on the other end. Same bullshit, same questions. What are you taking it for? Well, I'm not really sure. Rheumatological autoimmune disease. I should have caught on to this too, but I didn't. Right away, it like you flicked a switch. Went right into another bullshit conversation. Was, do you like songbirds? Something like that. Or, God, isn't summer great? And I'm thinking, what the hell, man? I'm calling a 24-hour registered nurse hotline. If I have any problems with this shit, my back is on fire. Well, I could see I wasn't getting anywhere. Anything else I can help you for? I'm thinking, well, you haven't done anything other than waste 10 minutes. No. So I hang up. That was Friday. I was lucky enough Friday afternoon to drive down to Ann Arbor, find out that I got shingles. And I never had them before, and shingles is a side effect when you get injections of Humira sometime, can be, blah, blah, blah. So I'm pissed off. Here I am talking. I could have went to just a local doctor and been told that. Here I'm talking to two expert nurses on a Humira hotline, and both of them blow me off with bullshit conversations. So I figure, well, you wait till Monday. I'm going to call and I'm going to give these people both barrels. This helpline isn't helping. At least it didn't help me. I mean, what's the use of it all? Hell, I'd have been better off driving down to a 24-hour party store and pulling up my shirt and showing it to the clerk. So I called her today. Same old bullshit. Same kind of lady on the phone. Really nice. We get to the question of what am I being treated for, and I get a little suspicious this time. And she tells me that it's, I tell her that it's not rheumatoid arthritis, and she says, would you like to speak? She can tell that I'm getting pissed. Would you like to speak to one of the nurses that work for the manufacturer of the drug? And I said, well, if she's willing to help and provide me with some information, I'd love to speak to her. Well, as it turns out, Abbott got cut in two a couple years ago or 5 years ago, and now it's two companies. See, I didn't know this at the time. It really didn't matter. When you think you're calling Humira, it's Humira. Make it, sell it, I don't care. It's a crap that I'm shooting into be that has this 800 number underneath it. And the name of the company is A as in Adam, B as in boy, B as in boy, V as in Victor, I as in Ida, E as in Edward. So when I was switched over, I was speaking with a registered nurse that works for the manufacturer. Bright lady, real nice. And I'm about ready to give her an earful. And I said, hey, I'm calling these ladies, and at this helpline, they didn't do anything for me. Well, as it turns out, and nobody said this, Humira actually, when it was manufactured, I'm not being treated for one of the diseases that Humira was approved for. So even if I had reactive arthritis, which I may or may not have, I don't have any of the diseases that Humira is approved for. Therefore, by FDA guidelines, these nurses are not allowed to give me any information. They can't even sell me on, would you like to talk to a research nurse and the manufacturer? So really, looking back, the best help both those nurses could have done for me last week was hang up the phone. And another thing I learned, and not that my doctor didn't have my best interest in mind, but once you're prescribed a medication, and that medication isn't approved for your condition, all bets are off. They don't have to tell you anything. You're getting it for reasons unknown. Now, I'm not too worried about that, but here's my big dilemma. The injection I took would have been 2 weeks this Wednesday. Well, the doctor's out of town, and when I called them Friday and spoke with them again today, Monday, which is the 18th, she told me to get off Humira, don't take it. Well, you can't, untake an injectable medication. And in speaking with the research nurse at Humira, it's often 3 months sometimes before there are any noticeable improvements in your condition. Well, this was my last hope. So I hope it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction from my doctor, and she just hit the panic button and didn't want any complaints and told me to get off it, because now I'm not supposed to take my second injection this Wednesday, which basically kills any chance of the injection that I've taken helping me. I could bite the bullet and put up with the shingles if they just didn't keep coming around all along, which nobody seems to have an answer for, and take my second injection Wednesday. So the reason that I'm posting this is because if you take Humira, there's a big difference between taking it for what it's approved for and what it isn't. And when it isn't, it really changes things. So spell that out. And anybody out there that had never taken it before, if you start to get some itching and pain and you can't use one of your limbs, it's probably because you're getting shingles, which I guess that virus remains dormant if you had chickenpox, which I did have. But this shingles is super painful. I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. So do your due diligence before you go on Humira, and try to make sure that your condition is what the medication was intended for. Thank you.